Now, another interesting thing about the subsidy is you see that the subsidy gets split between the seller and the buyer. With the subsidy, the seller receives a higher price, and to see what impact the subsidy has on the seller, you look at the price that the seller receives with the subsidy, less the price that they would have received without. So if we want to know how much of the subsidy benefits the seller, it's equal to this difference. So this is the portion of the subsidy that goes to the seller. But that's only part of the subsidy, because the difference between PS and PB is the entire subsidy. The portion of the subsidy that is received by the buyer is equal to the amount that the buyer paid without a subsidy less what they pay with the subsidy. So it's equal to this difference right here. And again, that's just the portion of the subsidy that goes to the buyer. So it's pretty clear to see here that most of the benefit of the subsidy is received by the seller. But that is, once again, a function of the price elasticities of supply relative to the price elasticities of demand. With the subsidy, the party that has the relatively more inelastic curve is going to be the one that receives a majority of the subsidy. So it's pretty easy to see here that if we were to compare the price elasticity of supply to the price elasticity of demand, since the seller is receiving most of the subsidy, then this relationship must hold. So once again, to summarize, the seller is going to receive most of the benefit of the subsidy because their price elasticity is smaller than the price elasticity of the consumers. Similar to what we talked about with taxes, if we have a situation where the price elasticity of supply is less than the price elasticity of demand, but both of these are less than 1. In other words, both are price inelastic. The seller's still going to receive most of the benefit, but because both the supply curve and the demand curve are price inelastic, you're going to have a relatively small deadweight loss. If, however, you had a situation where price elasticity of supply is less than the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand, but both of these are greater than 1, meaning both are price elastic, you still have the seller receiving a majority of the benefit, but this time you're going to have a large deadweight loss. And the deadweight loss here is going to be given by this triangle, where you have, for each of these extra transactions, the seller cost exceeds the buyer value. The subsidy has encouraged us to sell units that cost more to produce than they are valued by the consumer. For each of those extra units produced, we have a waste of resources, and that's what the deadweight loss represents in this particular example. So if you have very elastic supply and demand curves, this deadweight loss is going to get very large. If the elasticities are fairly small, you're not going to have as much of a deadweight loss.